All right. All right. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Secrets of Yoga with Jeffrey Armstrong and myself, Hemalayaa. Tonight, we are super excited to actually be live and here. We've had some technical difficulties over the last few weeks, and we are finally, it's happening. So we're very excited about the spark and the seed and the connection we are having in this moment to you all and to each other in this way. Jeffrey and I have known each other for about 14 years now, and I've been a student and friend of his, and I'm super excited to be on this format. Anywhere in the world we can connect like this, and I feel like this is wonderful for all the students that are around the world, that we can keep the conversation alive, and this is what our intention is for these webinars, is for us to have had a dialogue, to have dialogue with each other. So I'm playing the part of all of us and asking Jeffrey G, or dialoguing with Jeffrey in this way, so we can learn and grow and find other tools, yogic tools, Vedic tools, to live, to feel balanced in this world. And so we welcome you. Thank you for joining us this evening. And if you're watching the recording later on, thank you for watching and sharing yourself with us. So Jeffrey G.
Hey, good evening, Hema. Namaste.
Namaste. Tonight we're talking about the dream body. I'm so excited because in the bigger sense of that word, I'm a dreamer, a dreamer in my sleep life and also in my waking life. So I'm excited to learn, to know how we break that down and what that really means, and within the context also of the eightfold path of yoga, Ashtanga yoga, what are the ways that we can know our dream body and utilize it for our benefit?
Yeah, because one of the things we're trying for in yoga is called moksha, and it means freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're just confined inside of our physical body, we actually can tell we're not as free. It's like being in a small cell.
Right.
And in the dream body, we have a much wider range of action, but we have to learn how to walk in the dream body the same way we had to learn to walk and run in our physical body.
That's exciting. I want to know how to do that.
So this means we're covering the two limbs tonight of
Mm-hmm.
Patanjali's yoga that are called Pratyahara and Dharana.
Right. Pratyahara is, from what I know and have studied a little tiny bit of it, is withdrawing our senses. It's pulling our senses. I don't know how to do it. I just know that's what it is.
It's a good place to start. What if we start with the word? The word is related to a sister word, or the mother word, which is prakriti. And in Sanskrit, you look at the syllable for the meaning. So pra means to send forth or to go.
Okay.
So matter is called prakriti because it's always sending more growth forward. Every season, every year, it sends more. So kriti means to do. So prakriti is always sending forth more life. And iti means over and over and over again. So prakriti. So to do, to send forth, and to do it over and over again. Now with pratyahara, where you have the pra, so we're either going to send forth or go somewhere. And we have tya, and tya means, like tyaga is the Sanskrit word, it means to throw something down or give it up or move away from it.
Okay.
And then ha is the root of hari and hara. Hara is Shiva, and hari is Vishnu, and they're both in our heart. Hara means take away, and Ra means the light of the sun.
Sorry, I missed what you just said. It
Yeah,
felt
so
like it cut out.
Ra means the light of the sun.
Okay.
So Pratyahara means to move away from our outer connection through our senses and to point our consciousness in toward the center of our being, to our heart, where Vishnu is. And once we're there, to head toward the light of consciousness and to go to a higher state of being.
Mm-hmm.
So we're moving away from the outer world for a moment and turning everything inside.
And how do we know that that's more beneficial? I know it's a stupid question. It feels like a silly question, but
On one level, it's not more beneficial if you want to be in the outside world, then but it's a little bit like when you go to sleep. You'll notice that during the day, you can only do certain things. And if you have a good dreaming night, you can do anything in your dreams.
mm-hmm.
Yes, we have the saying, in your dreams.
All right.
That you can't really do that, but you can do it in your dreams. So think of our dream body as different than our physical body, and we're pulling away from it. As a yogi, we're saying, for the moment, I'm not going to go through the passageways, the hallways of my senses.
The hallways, did you say?
I did.
Yeah.
So imagine that the outside world and us
Mm-hmm.
are connected by 10 hallways, passageways.
Mm.
And those passageways are from your senses. And according to the yogis, there are 10 separate senses in our physical body.
Ah, that's like the depiction of the horses pulling the chariot.
Right. That's from the Upanishads, the Chandogya Upanishad. And it says that our senses are like horses pulling the chariot of our body forward.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen a child in a store and the parents are going, hold your horses there, young man or young lady. So we even kind of know that the senses are pulling us like horses.
Right.
Right? But here's the secret. So here's the first secret.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about ourselves, do we say I hand or my hand?
We say my hand.
So even though we behave like my hand is me,
Mm-hmm.
we actually know it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
So what about our senses then? If we're hungry, we say, I'm hungry.
Mm.
But who's really hungry?
The tongue.
Tongue wants some stimulation.
Mm-hmm.
The stomach needs some food, but maybe the tongue just wants some pleasure.
Huh.
So touch is pulling us, hearing is pulling us, smelling is pulling us, tasting is pulling us, looking is pulling us.
Why are we given these senses then if they're just going to pull us away? It sounds like, because the word pull makes me feel like they're pulling us away from something.
Or towards something.
Or towards something, right. Right.
The toward is, at first, toward the material world, because we're here to have experiences. So let's just say that yoga means we've come here to have experience, but while we were doing it, we got lost. It's kind of like going to Disneyland and getting amnesia. Okay? So if you didn't have the senses, you couldn't go to the amusement park.
Yes.
But if you're the one who's gone to the amusement park, if you get lost in the amusement park, now how do we know someone's lost in the amusement park? Well, we know they're addicted to their senses, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do other people control us? How do people that are trying to sell us products control us?
Here, more.
By controlling our senses.
candy. Here's this color. Here's that sound.
Yes, and nowadays they've gotten so clever at it, they put poisons inside of the food and give it to us, and the poisons overstimulate us. So we get addicted
Sugar.
to the food and come back, not only sugar, so-called natural flavor, monosodium glutamate.
Right.
There's
Yes.
all kinds of things that are toxins that are being put in food now to addict our senses to the experience. So we're controlled through those 10 senses, and they're also a way that we reach out and have experience in the world. So as yogis, let's talk about this a little bit, and I'll give you an example. If the chariot, so let's talk about the chariot. The senses are the horses, so there's 10 horses. The reins of the chariot are the mind. The driver of the chariot is our discernment, which can tell one thing from another. And the passenger in the chariot is
our true self, Atma.
Atma. But most of the time, the horses are dragging us around. So let's talk about the horses a little bit so this becomes more clear.
Okay.
Okay? So this is first based on the 5 elements, because everything in the material world, the bodies, all the dense things are made of earth, water, fire, air, and space. So from those, we get 5 senses that are able to perceive things. They're called the 5 perceptive senses. Smell, for the element earth. What's the next one?
Taste.
For the element water. Vision, because without light you can't see. Without fire you don't have light. So fire makes the vision of the eyes. Then air, you feel the air. The skin is all over our body.
Ah, yes.
Through it, we connect with the air and with touch.
Okay.
So that's connected to air. And then, this one's subtle, the vibrations that we're listening to right now could even travel in space without air. You can broadcast a television signal all through space. So our hearing is related to the element of space. So there's your first 5 horses.
Those are some strong horses.
Aren't they, though?
And they're all up here, pretty much. No,
Touch.
well, our skin, yeah. Touch.
Touch is everywhere. Just like air is. Air is everywhere.
Right.
And, of course, what the yogis say is the biggest, most powerful bully on the block. Which of your senses is the strongest horse?
Taste?
Aha.
Yeah.
That's the one everyone's hooked on. That horse is running everywhere.
That would be the foodie and the sexy.
That would be the foodie. We're getting to the sexy next.
Ah.
Technically.
Okay.
Though it's a companion, I guess. But the next senses are the active senses. So if everybody's followed, the 5 elements give us 5 senses. Earth, because we smell little chunks of earth is smell, taste is tongue and tasting, and then seeing is light and fire. Touching and tactile sensation is the air, and space is the ears. Now, the earth gives rise to another sense, but this is an active sense, and this is how the earth leaves our body.
Through excretion.
Through excretion from the anus, which is the earthy sense of our activities. And if we were living in nature, after we excreted, our waste materials would go right back to the earth. The earth right back to earth. And like the nose, they smell. So that tells you that it's the smell and the earth. And then next is sexuality, our genitals, either for reproduction or pleasure. And just as the tongue is ruled by water, so are they. And the genitals tend to be wet. They tend to squirt water or squirt fluids, or in the case of the female body, make fluids for amniotic fluid. And so that part of our body is the other wet area, you could say. So it's also ruled by water. So the active sense of sex is ruled by water. Now next, locomotion, using your feet to walk around, is ruled by fire. Why, Hema?
That one I'm confused about.
Because to see, you have to be able to see in order to walk. If I said it's midnight, let's pitch dark, let's go for a walk in the woods, you'd say, no thanks.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Can't see anything, will fall over. So light or fire is associated with the active sense of locomotion. And then the next one is grasping. So if locomotion is the feet, grasping is the hands.
Mm-hmm.
And that's connected to?
Touch and air.
Because this is our instrument of touch. Much more than our feet, we use our hands.
Mm-hmm.
And grasp with them. And grasping is a very human thing. And then finally, speech is how we make vibrations. So the active sense of speech is connected to space, or akash, just as hearing is. Because what we speak goes into our ears and to other people's ears. So those are our 10 senses. Okay?
I see.
Now let's just imagine that they're pulling us around all the time, and that's good or bad, depending. Either we're addicted, in which case we're being dragged, or it's good because we're experiencing the world, because we came here to experience the world. But the problem is it makes the material world seem like the only reality. But when we dream at night, we entirely experience a different thing.
Yeah, we can go anywhere in our dreams, it seems.
Isn't it interesting?
Mm-hmm.
And if you dream properly, if you know how to, imagine if you knew how to direct yourself in dreaming to any dream you want. It would be very hard to get people out of bed.
Yeah. I'd want to stay there.
Because it would literally be more fun for less money. You wouldn't have to go work.
Yeah.
See? And this is the evolution of human consciousness. This is why people become artistic and why they become creative, because it's more fun.
Mm.
I mean, you probably did this in class. I know I did when I was in grade school. I was sitting there going, this is boring, la, 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 la.
Mm-hmm.
I had to make a more interesting movie than the one the teacher was showing.
So was it that you weren't, that your senses weren't activated, or?
For me, it was that what she or he was teaching wasn't intelligent enough to occupy me. It took about 10% of my intelligence to hear that, and I was going, okay, couldn't we do something more interesting?
Right.
So the 90% of me that wasn't listening tried to do something else. But this is how all of us are, and we're that way at night. If we're clear-minded, we can go and have really interesting dreams. If you're still digesting the pizza you had at midnight, you'll have pizza dreams all night, and they won't be very interesting.
Right, because we're digesting while we're sleeping as well, right?
So you have to shut the body down. So just think, if you slept in the correct way, you'd eat earlier, you'd be done digesting by the time you go to sleep, and you would try to control your dreams and have dreams that you want to have. Haven't you ever done that? Try to get back in a dream that was really great?
Yes, often.
Yeah, often.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So this body that we're talking about now, our dream body, is actually different than the 10 horses that are always pulling at it. So it's the mind, manas in Sanskrit. It's the buddhi, that's the driver. So the reins is the mind, because the mind's connected to all 10 horses. And that's the tunnels I was talking about.
Okay.
Okay? There are tunnels where information, you could call them pipes or data passageways, like a computer does. There's 10 passageways that sensory information is coming inward to the inner part of you in from the outside. And so the yogis call this being like a turtle. They want to stop that data flow, but instead of stopping it, they turn it around. And they point the part of them that could connect with the senses, they point it inward rather than outward.
So now we can withdraw our senses. We can actually like the turtle turn inward. But how long can we do that for? And
Well, this is the skill. This is the trick.
okay.
If you're trying to use it for being creative, you have to have an inner vision of something that doesn't go away like a dream, but you keep holding that vision. So what the yogis noticed is if I say my hand instead of I hand, then these 10 senses must not be me.
Is there right? I was just going to ask, is there another way to utilize our senses then? Because we're going to always have these senses sort of running. We're trying to run the show.
More interesting ways to use the senses is a different subject than this particular one.
Okay.
But in this one, we're trying to, for the first time maybe in our life, unplug from all 10 senses. That is what we do at night when we sleep. We don't use our hands for grasping. We don't use our feet for locomotion. We are asleep, so we don't use our genitals for sex. We don't excrete, hopefully. We're not doing anything with the active senses. And the perceptive senses, the eyes are closed. We have on the little eye mask and earplugs if you're a Vata and you're sensitive. And we're not eating. We're not smelling. So we purposely do Pratyahara just before we go to sleep. And we shut all 10 senses down and say, okay, everybody, go to sleep now. Time for nighty.
Right.
Now what? The yogi asks, okay, so I'm not those senses. So if I could do that at night, why can't I do whatever I want during the day? In other words, if things happen automatically, why don't I gain control over them? That's the secret of yoga.
Is knowing that you have control over it all?
Is knowing that you could, but you don't yet. But that right now, nature runs it automatically, but you could take control back over it so that you, instead of waiting for nighttime and sleep and exhaustion to tell your 10 senses to go to bed, you could just tell them, okay, 10 senses, here we go. You shut down, pull in, pull in, pull in, pull in, and they would be obedient and do what you say. They would all turn around and go inside. Imagine they're like pets. Imagine everybody has 10 pets. You've had a dog or a cat, so you know what it's like to tell them what to do, and they go yes or no or maybe. But if they're well trained, you say sit, they sit. So what if your senses are your 10 animals? You know the connection here is the zodiac is called the zodiac.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So from your astrology, you can tell about your animals. The astrologer knows about your 10 animals.
Oh wow, which one's running? Which one's the main?
Who's running the show?
Yes, got it.
Because somebody's a tactile, somebody's an auditory, somebody's taste oriented, and they're a cook and a chef, and everything is in the taste of the thing that you do. Smell, and so they're a perfume maker. And can you smell the 10 different things that are in this perfume? Only if you have a highly trained horse. I mean, nose.
Right. So these senses also are connected to our thoughts. Are our thoughts real then?
Yeah, they are, but they're not necessarily really leading us somewhere interesting. So this is going to lead us toward a transition. Once we're good at the Pratyahara, we're actually going to be able to tell the senses, okay, right now, we're just going to go within, and we're not going to go out, but I'm going to be awake rather than asleep. So imagine that it's like anything. If you've ever done some athletic activity, at first you couldn't figure out what to do to get your body to do the thing you were supposed to do. And then it's almost as if by practice you found a certain handle that when you turn it, now you can do that. But you have to do a certain amount of practice. If it's shooting baskets, then you have to learn how to do it correctly, and then you have to do it 1,000 times, 2,000 times, and then there's a spot, and you know where that spot is. Everybody's experienced this in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to that spot, you do it every time. Hmm. Hmm. Musicians learn to do it with their musical instrument. Everybody with one sensory activity, or two, or three. So that same button, nature pushes that button when it's time for you to go to sleep, and all your senses just go to sleep. So nature set up to control everything in us automatically until we take control back and do it consciously. And that's what yoga is. So in yoga, we're called the Purusha, the Pura city. This is called the city of 9 gates. And these senses are pulling it around. And we're the Isha, we're the one who's supposed to be in control of it.
So this was reminding me about, because I really go to all these festivals and I'm around a lot of people and I'm on stage sometimes and there's a lot of energy happening. And then my feeling now is I just run to my room afterwards, lie in my bed, close the lights, get under the covers, put my eye pillow on, earplugs in, and that's my way of being the turtle. That's sort of one of my secrets. Is I go in because we don't have caves that we could go into here in North America so easily. I go into the cave at the hotel and just get myself really tucked in there, and I do feel that withdrawal. And that's the only way I could come out again, really, to be out in the world and enjoy. So I have a natural sensor for that now. Many of us don't. Many of us just are going. So is there a way to incorporate some kind of practice or something that it's coming to balance as we go along?
It's a great question, Hem. And you notice the irony of the yoga festivals right now is that two things go on there. Yoga teaching, and everybody dresses in such a way as to show off what the horses of other people might like to eat.
Right.
So it's rather interesting. On the one hand, they're saying, I want to do yoga and go within. And on the other hand, they're going, you want some of this?
I might have to say that I have 20 horses when I'm at these festivals.
So all the more reason that you're there as a teacher, so it might be useful for you to have some really quality internal time. So think of it that we get turned inside out by our senses and by the world, and that there's a balance point, and that we should have been taught how to withdraw consciously, turn the senses inside, and do that anytime we want to. Just one at a time. We just turn them off. And we just turn them within. And now all the energy that's pulling us outside, we turn it around and aim it within.
Now, I feel like children have this naturally also.
Children have a lot of things naturally for a little while until the ego takes over and nature takes control.
That's right. So the child wisdom is express, don't hold things in, and then also take that withdrawal time when naturally you feel like you need to. They take that time out, get into a book, or just go quiet time.
That's why the Zen monks say, the famous saying is, they asked one monk, so how do you know you're enlightened? What do you do? He said, I eat when I'm hungry and I sleep when I'm tired. Now, that's not quite enough for the Vedic style yogis, but that shows that they've learned Pratyahara. It means they're not chasing addictions through the senses into the outside world. They learned how to turn all of that desire energy inward rather than wasting it out here and running at everything outside of themselves. So Pratyahara is the line where you stop identifying with your physical body as you. And you actually turn within, so that puts you at the next step.
Which is you're ready for that one-pointedness, that is Dharana?
Because as soon as you go inside, you'll find that inside of you is just as crazy and confusing as the outside world, if not more so.
So would you give us your description or translation of Dharana, please?
Yeah, Dharana means to become very steady.
Mm.
The word is related to Dharma, which means to stand straight and tall for something and not fluctuate. So if you know something is right, that way that you stand for it and you don't doubt yourself and waver, you're just steady and stand. Now aim that at something, and that becomes one-pointedness. You're just now clear that that's exactly where you intend to be. The sport of archery is very much like this. I'll tell you a famous story. When Arjuna was learning archery with his teacher Drona, Drona was teaching all the princelings in the royal family archery. He took them all out in the forest with a big target of a bird and had them put it up about 100 feet up in a tree. And then one at a time, he asked all the students, look at that tree with the target at the top and tell me what you see. And some would say, I see the forest, I see the sky, I see this, I see the bird. Another one would say, I see the tree, and then I see this, and then I see that, and I see the bird. And I see the leaves waving, and I see the bird. He got to Arjuna, and Arjuna said, I only see the eye of the bird.
Mm.
And Drona said, this is my best student. And what do we call it in archery? Hitting the bull's eye.
Mm.
That one exact place, and being able to do that again and again and again and again and again. So imagine first learning that outside of your body physically. So the way that yogis practice this is they take a regular white piece of paper. They draw a dot about the size of a dime in the middle of it, exact middle. Put the piece of paper on the wall. Sit about 6 feet away from it in a comfortable posture. Set a timer for an hour so you can't hear it ticking. And then hold your vision steady on that dot for an hour and try not to blink and try not to waver. Of course, you'll find at first an hour is too much.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit.
But gradually, you become more and more and more comfortable holding that one-pointed focus. But this one-pointed focus is the next step of yogic development, so that when you go inside into the mind, you don't get lost, because the mind is described as a place where everything is accepted or rejected. Think of the mind as saying yes, no, maybe, I don't know, yes, no, maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure. The nature of the mind is to see both sides of the problem and not be sure.
I see.
It's like a hall of mirrors, the yogis say.
It's kind of like an endless pros and cons list, constantly going.
Could be this, could be that, could be this, could be
that.
Maybe this, maybe that. That's why we sometimes describe the mind's activities as like a hamster wheel.
Yes.
The hamster
the monkey mind.
Wheel,
yeah.
And you just run in circles. So dharana is to get off the wheel. And at first you practice it like target practice, just focusing on the bullseye.
So really dharana is parking the senses, parking the horses.
Not only parking them, but making sure that all of their energy is working for you internally. They're not straining to go outside, but they're actually now completely turned in the direction of the inner reality. And now this body that we're staring at, you could say once we cross that boundary, we've just stepped out of the physical body. Somewhat the way you hear people talk about the physical body when they're dreaming or when they have a near-death experience. They say, I rose above my body, I saw my body, I saw the operating table and the doctors, I knew I was not my body. The body they rose up in is their dream body.
Wow.
In fact, according to the yogis, the universe is filled with dream bodies. Now, here's something to think about, because every living entity, everything, every microbe, bacteria, dog, cat, creature, everything, when it sleeps, it dreams, and when it dreams, it leaves its body and goes out into space in its dream body. Imagine how crowded that is.
There's a lot going on.
A lot going on. You see dogs dreaming, you know they're dreaming. They're going, oh, oh. They're talking to somebody, trying to eat, trying to mate, trying to run. Obviously, we get in the dream body and try to do the things that we would do in the material world, and then we get confused.
So what's a useful purpose of our dream body? I mean, or where can we choose where to go?
Yeah, we can actually. Not only that, but if dreaming is practicing leaving your body and going in your dream body, then what is death?
Huh.
It's dreaming.
Same, but you just can't come back.
Yeah, it's dreaming, but you can't get back in.
Wow.
They close the door, and you go, no, no.
But I'm not done yet. I have many more horses to feed.
I haven't had lunch. I have many things to do. People are counting on me.
Yes.
All of those responsibilities. So you see, if we don't know Pratyahara, we can never really get rest from all the things the world is demanding that we have to do. And if we don't learn Dharana, we can't choose one thing to invest all of our energy in. You've probably heard about this in fairy tales, so-called, as the Hydra. Have you heard of the Hydra?
I have not.
It's a sea monster, and if you cut off its head, that one head turns into two.
Okay.
So every time you cut off the head, another one comes out. And then another one. And then another one. And then another one.
So you can't cut them off, is what you're saying, basically. Because they'll just grow and multiply. But we can withdraw, which I would like to talk a little bit more about.
Okay.
Yeah. I would like to know if there's actual, you said one technique was sitting and being one-pointed with Dharana.
Because when you put your mind on one thing, you automatically withdraw it from everything else. It's kind of a push-pull contest. So interestingly enough, doing Dharana sort of starts you to do Pratyahara. But if you were really good at Pratyahara, then you'd get really good at Dharana.
So they're very interconnected, these two.
Very much. That's the transition point from defining ourselves as our material body and defining ourselves otherwise as consciousness, which we're eventually going to see. But in between, we see that consciousness is carrying memories. So here's a way to think of this. Imagine that everything that's happened to you this lifetime, for sure, is sitting in your dream body. And imagine you're like some crazy junk collector. What do they call those people that do that?
Pat racks or whatever.
Yeah. So imagine that you're a pack rat and that everything you've ever done, you're still holding on to it and felt and experienced because you're thinking, maybe I might need this again. Well, I'm just going to save it just in case.
Right.
Yeah. Now imagine if you had a baby and every time you changed the baby's diaper, you weren't quite sure what to do with them, so you saved them.
Oh, wow. This is getting ugly.
So let's just say that the baby's diaper full of something you don't need to save is all of the bad moments we've had in life that don't serve us anymore because we know what happened. We don't have to think about it one more time in order to get rid of the stinky part. So why don't we throw away the stinky part?
Wow. I love this. This is exactly, this is what I do in my classes. when we, cleanse off our bodies and just make that choice to do it. Right.
Of course. And of course, in our asana and pranayama, we go on to we do this automatically because by giving the senses positive activities, for the moment they forget the negative ones and they get away from the mind. They do something balanced and healthy, and they get the life force healthy, and they fill their senses and cells with new activities and emotions. And when you get them to do that, then they start thinking, well, maybe I could be this way all the time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I want to know is it just a choice that we make to withdraw and not collect?
Not exactly. It's also a recognition of what is self and what is not self. And there's a name for this in Sanskrit. Like the neti pot, which helps you get things out of your nose that don't belong there.
Right.
So neti is what?
Not this, not that. Not this, not this, I guess.
Not this, not that. You were right. So it sounds like the same word. Not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. And so all the things that are not us are what we're finally going to bring our attention to, and we're going to go, oh, look, I'm still clinging to that. I'm still holding that emotion. And holding it turns out to be a conscious choice. But there are secrets for getting rid of it, which we're going to learn later. But the first one is not to focus on it, and so this is where Dharana comes. And here's how Dharana is described. Like a dam is holding water, but the dam is not shaking and is not investing a huge amount of intensity in the process. The dam is very relaxed. It's just calmly holding one pointedness. But we think at first that one pointedness should be done as intensely as our search for pleasing our senses.
Hardcore process.
Yeah, we learn in the material world there's a big competition to get everything. So we get this intense outward running at everything, grabbing it, trying to get it, desiring it.
Yes.
That becomes our system's operating system. We don't know how to change it. And gradually when you do this dharana, you start with the dot, but then you start swapping objects that you're more interested in. So let's just say that now we draw that as a sun so that it looks like the sun. And is made of a golden colored ink. And now you're staring at the sun in the middle of the page. There's a little more interest in this for the mind. And now if I said you try to understand all the different energies that are emanating from the sun. The one-pointedness is even easier to hold because I've given the mind a little something to do. Just a little bit. Because actually later on I'm going to give it more and more to do. In our next class we're going to talk about what meditation really is. But there's no point trying to meditate until you have dharana. Because to meditate you have to hold something in focus for a very long time. And it can't be hard work, and it can't make you shake, and it can't drain your energy. And your senses can't be elsewhere. This is how Patanjali describes it in the Yoga Sutras. And this is your second body. This is your dream body.
I want to move on to, soon, in a moment, I want to move on. There's some really good questions that have been written here by some people that are on tonight, Rakesh and Chitra. I would like to just ask if we could have very short possibility for next time's class, like what you'll be, where we go from the dream body. We've done the physical body, now it's the dream body. Where do we go from here? What's our next body?
Learn how to get outside the dream body. And remember, the dream body has 3 components. So think of the karana, the physical body, what I like to call the food body. It helps if you think it's just food orbiting consciousness, this physical body. So if it's made of the 5 elements, that's how we broke down the 5 senses, so we can see that. Oh, look, I have 10 senses, not 20, not 12, not 6, 10. And I should be in a conversation with each one of them all the time. I should have them on a leash. I shouldn't have them just dragging me everywhere. And when I feel them pull me, I should pull back and say, no, sit. Sit. Good. If it was a dog and you were training it until it sat, you wouldn't say good.
Okay, no, I have to just interject and ask this then. Is there some that are actually our true desires that are separate from the senses pulling us? Like, how do we know that we need to pull back all of them?
You have to train all of them.
You have to train all of them.
You don't have to pull them all back permanently. Didn't say that. Because you're still going to engage with life. But you're eventually going to learn by telling them to sit when they're addicted to something or when they're being dragged by something. So now here's the secret you're trying to get at. The things that make your animals go crazy are called vrittis. They're also called samskaras. They're remembrances from your past. Have you ever had the experience of smelling something that resembled your mother's cooking and something she used to cook when you were 5? And suddenly you're that 5-year-old again? Was that good or is that bad, though?
Oh, it feels nice.
But if your enemy learned how to control you by cooking your mother's favorite dish, then it could be used to control you in a negative way. So the yogi is actually becoming the decider on everything that the senses do and having a conversation and asking the senses to explain themselves. So tell me why we need that. We have to have a conversation about it. Do we really need that? Or is that just a pull? If that's just a pull, then obviously extra energy that I don't know what to do with is dragging me to do something not good for me externally. That's a Wall Street's dream.
Yes, right.
And even our consumer culture.
Consumer culture, I was just going to go there, right.
It's called the gross national product because it's gross.
That's marketing, yeah. Marketing is just like, hey, you horse, and hey, you horse. I'm going to show you what your horses will love. Right.
It's to control everyone's senses by getting inside their mind and shorting out their buddhi or discernment. That then makes them subject to their senses, and you give them an emotion in their mind that makes them feel like it's mom's cooking, and it's actually some junk food filled with poison. Or it's running after someone, or it's all kinds of things. So a yogi learns how to stop the senses and have a conversation about their pulls. They don't believe the pulls of their senses anymore.
That's what vritti is?
Vritti is something that was put in your mind that confuses your mind and shorts out its access to the buddhi or discernment, and it only allows you to be pulled by the senses.
Is that like Pavlov's dog?
Not exactly, but it's a similar principle. It's a little more complex. Think of it as a virus, a programming trick that shorts out your operating system and shows you this product, and then you run after it.
Got it. Okay.
Irrationally.
Okay.
Yeah. So imagine that now when this becomes more complicated, the 10 objects of the senses are some person that promises all kinds of things. And now we're going to see it's not only pleasing my senses, it may be the symbolic value of what the thing appears to be. And so this I'm going to have to look inside the catalog in my mind, in my dream body. So think of your dream body as your library, and in it is stored not only all of this life's activities, but the last 100 lifetimes.
Wow.
There's a library in there. And right now we don't know how to access that library. We're too pulled around and crazed by what's going on.
Okay.
See?
Yay, you just answered my, yes. You answered the why.
That's why.
Yeah.
So we can go inside. So here's the saying, as above, so below. Now, I'll tell you an interesting thing. You've seen the Star Wars bars in the films.
Yes.
The aliens from many different planets. Well, your dream body at night goes to the Star Wars bars. That's where that came from. And all the living entities in the universe, including the devas and everyone, are drifting around out there in their subtle body, in their dream body. So, and that body, because it doesn't have the stability of the 5 elements, is pulled by desire. And pulled by the past, and pulled by different emotions. So this, now we, instead of just working to perfect our physical body with asana and pranayama, we now work to go inside in our dream body and get rid of things that we don't need. To get rid of emotions we don't need. To actually extract them. To find vrittis and take them out and realize someone put that there. Could have been when I was in grade school, could have been my parents by accident, could have been anything. We're going to have a new standard of what our dream body would be like, and this is because we want to use it on purpose, not forced by all of our past.
Got it.
Okay.
Unconsciously.
Yeah. And the last thing, of course, is it's the dream body that we leave our physical body in when we go to the next body.
So we move to from life to life, or yes, from body to body.
Yes, and so if you don't encounter the dream body consciously while you're alive, then you encounter it for the first time when you leave your body.
That's freaky.
Too freaky.
I mean, I'm sure both are freaky.
It's a nightmare. And that's why they say in the Vedas that the Yamadutas, the beings who come and get you when you've left your physical body, sometimes they have to throw a net over you because you're so freaked out, you're so crazed, going, because you're having a nightmare. And they drag you to a quieter place, play some nice music, calm you down, and say, relax, relax.
Where you practice Pratyahara and Dharana?
Too late. Now they have to do it for you, and they say, all right, listen, here's what's going on. And they take everybody through this routine where they're now going to explain the process of their last life and their previous lives and how they're progressing and where they are. So they go to this meeting, and finally then they're directed on to their next body. And their next body is obviously the result of the forward momentums they've created in the last one.
Wow.
And this ties again into astrology. Astrology is the record of what we're carrying inside of us from our many lifetimes.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay, I just want to make a plug for you, as you said, astrology, just so everyone knows. Jeffrey Armstrong also does Vedic astrology, and he does these sessions over Skype and whatnot, so it's really profound to learn about ourselves that way. I would like to move on to some amazing questions that I'm seeing have been written here on our board, so we can have a few minutes to answer those, or you can have a few minutes to answer those, Jeffrey G.
Great.
Rakesh has written a few, and I'm going to read the first one. The mind controls both the conscious and the unconscious functions in the body. Does yoga affect both?
Yes, it does. And the mind and the body actually are exchanging control back and forth. Until the mind is controlled, we have the feeling that we are controlling with the mind, but in fact, through the mind-body link, the mind is being controlled by unconscious autonomic or automatic functions. But what yoga does is it says all of the things that nature's been doing automatically, anything that I can take control over, I'm now going to reprogram. So imagine that when you buy a computer, it comes from the factory with factory settings, and you have to have a code to override those. Because for the ordinary user, it's better that they just use it with factory specifications. So if you called tech support and you were advanced enough as a programmer, you could be given special passcodes that would let you get into the code and change the code. Yoga is going inside and changing your relationship to nature so that you don't have automatic control relationship with nature. Instead, you feel nature ask you something or tell you something, and you make a decision about what to do. And this is called the devas. Nature is called the devas, and they're running the universe, so they're trying to talk to us and tell us what to do. And our energies are all programmed to go downhill and do something automatic. So what is the default setting for people in relationship? What do they do if they can't do anything more creative?
In relationship?
They procreate.
Oh, right, gotcha. Wow.
If they're not creative, they procreate.
I guess that's a creation also.
No, it's a procreation. It happens automatically. You can be a dummy, you can be dead drunk, and it still happens.
But isn't it interesting that the pro is in before creation? Pro. Pro
Which
and con, pro.
They didn't use a prophylactic. It means that they did something automatic. So actually nature did it, is my point.
Got it. Gotcha.
Whereas if you paint a painting, that shows that you're actually struggling against nature's automatic. There's no automatic painting. If I say paint a painting, then someone just paints a painting. But if I say make a baby, they just go, sure, I guess I put this with this and I make a baby. So that is unconscious creativity. So think that all of our functions in life are currently that way. All the ones we haven't taken control over are automatic. Great question. Let's try another.
Okay. Do you need to control the sense or the thought to make a change to become more conscious?
This more conscious word is a new age buzzword. You're not becoming more conscious. You're using consciousness to exercise control over matter. Conscious is said as if people know what conscious is. They don't. They're actually learning to aim consciousness at something that they are not and hold their focus long enough to see that it's not them. Then they override the signals coming from that department with their consciousness and impose their own ideas instead of accepting the impulses that are coming in that have just been programmed in randomly. Just imagine us as a computer that's been programmed randomly. And for now, we don't know how to sort out all the impulses. So the yogi through Pratyahara just shuts the whole thing down. It just says, from now on, you only get what I tell you. This is what you do in an ashram. You get 2.5 meals a day. You sleep 5 hours a night. You can't go out. You can't watch TV. You can't have movies. You can't do anything you want. You can't go eat candy. Can't get junk food. There's no other sensory activities. You're in lockdown. You're in voluntary pratyahara for a certain period of time. So now, immediately you go to the mind and say, I'm not getting any satisfaction. And the mind goes, don't look at me. I don't know what to do. I thought you were going to give it to me. So now you have to migrate from both the mind and the body. And that's where we're headed next week.
Got it.
But for the meantime, at least moving to the mind, this is the central control room. And from there, once you're there, you can see all 10 signals coming into you. And you start to see them in slow motion. So now it's like your computer, you're watching in slow motion as each of your senses tries to tell you what to do. And you realize that you can say no. You're not me, I'm me.
This brings us to actually, Rakesh has one more question, but I'm going to go to Chitra because she actually asks on the withdraw theme of the withdrawal of the state of mind, or no, the function of one's state of mind. She says, how does one condition one's mind to be less reactive?
By ignoring the mind and using the directions of the guru instead of thought.
So having guidance.
Because if you don't have guidance, you're going to use your own old methods of programming, or you're already on the hamster wheel trying to reprogram. That's where the guru comes in, and that's where in the New Age movement telling everyone they're their own guru is tragic. Because if anyone tried to do this, become a race car driver, just tell yourself you're a race car driver and get in the car and go 200 miles an hour. And you, of course, die on the first turn. In no other thing would we award ourselves being a master except the idiots who are telling themselves that they're gurus and totally have mastered consciousness just because someone says you are. That is so foolish that it confuses everyone into thinking, why aren't I already accomplished in this? Because you haven't practiced it. What do you mean practiced it? I am it. No, you're not. You have to practice it. You're already submerged under your senses. You're in a diving suit called a physical body with a dream body, which is very complicated, and a physical body, and no one has taught you what to do with it. Yoga is the first time we've tried to become a professional. So the withdrawal begins with becoming aware of the senses as not yourself. You have to be aware of them as not self, because that awareness is the precursor to having the conversation over what the senses are telling you to do. And if there are any emotions involved in that, it's already a problem, because it's not an emotional question. What you're eating for dinner tonight should not be an emotional question. What you're doing through your senses should not be an emotional question. It should first be a scientific question. Am I supposed to be doing this particular thing? Have I decided? So you see, you have to take a decision first. And that comes from knowledge first, and then agreeing to follow the knowledge. Agreement comes from having a teacher and saying, yes, I agree to do what you say for a while. And in any other skill, I studied martial arts for many years. I never told my teacher, I'm a black belt. I'm conscious.
Right.
Right. Okay, next question.
Yes. This one's probably a really quick one, and then we'll jump back to Rakesh's after this. Stephen asks, so the light beings that are near-death experiencers encounter. Sorry, I can't read in this moment. The light beings that near-death experiencers encounter are the demigods. I'm just going to correct demigods to actually devas.
Yes, devas is a more useful word. Demigod, just for your information, means the result of a sexual union between a deva and a human. And it's a Greek concept that the devas come to earth, make love to a human, and make a baby, and the baby is a demigod. But the beings you're referring to and that I referred to earlier are called deva. And they're the beings who don't have to have physical bodies, but they live in what we're now calling the dream body. They have a subtle body, and with it, they're conducting the laws of nature. They're running nature. So the word deva means they're playing in the light. Playing means working. It means they're making the universe work by being present, and the body that they're in is the subtle body. So they're still materially embodied. But you're correct that they're more light than we are. If you ever saw that lovely film about the Cocoon, it was called, about the aliens coming to Earth, and the alien lady had a zipper suit that made her look human. And the human fell in love with her. And when they went to kiss, she said, "Oh, let me show you something." She unzipped her, our five element body. And in her energy body, she then bounced an energy ball that landed on him and gave him a very ecstatic experience. So think of the devas as living in a subtle body of mind, buddhi, and ahankara, ego. And to us then, they seem very dreamlike. Like you could say a light body, but your light body is actually your Atma. That's the part of you that's really luminous. And even the subtle matter is dark, but it's being lit up with more luminosity in the case of the devas. And yes, the beings that they see, which some people also call angels, from another Sanskrit word, but those beings that are out there are guides, you could say. They're working with the divine law to make life possible.
Okay, great. Stephen, I hope that answers your question. And I think we have time just for one more question, and it's going back to Rakesh, and his question is, if love is a feeling, then it is not linked to any of the senses. So is it correct to think that you don't need your senses to have a yogic experience?
Well, if the love you're talking about has never included you having any sensory contact with the person you say you love, then there's no connection. But if you're getting sensory experiences from somebody, they could be making those experiences the way mom made apple pie. You could be marrying your mother. You could be getting addicted to certain sensory experiences that they're providing. In fact, isn't it fair to say that a lot of what we call falling in love is an agreement to give each other pleasure in our senses? And I'm not saying that that's bad or in any way, but is that love or is that mutual pleasuring? It would make sense if you understand that a lot of the people who do that end up saying a year or two later, "I hate you." Why did they go from love to hate? Well, first, they were never loving, not much, but they were addicted to the other person. They were their favorite drug. You were giving me the drug I wanted, then you withdrew it or charged too much for it or went away. So now you're not giving me the drug that I need and want, and now I'm addicted to you, so I have to hate you to get away from you. This is all very amateur language and behavior for this whole process. It's the way people who are not yogis mush the whole thing together and can't tell love. In fact, in English, the word love, we say it for everything. I love pizza, I love my dog, I love you. So I'm not even sure what you mean by love. Because the question would be, do you love the subtle body, the dream body, or the physical body, or the Atma? In which case, which part do you divorce? Which part are you connected to? But you see, the whole conversation so far has been by people who are confused and think they are their physical body. That's why hearing this knowledge changes the whole process of how you look at everything, including that ultimate object of your senses that you may be saying you love, and it may be that you do indeed love them like you love pizza.
Got it.
And that may not be unreasonable. Perhaps that's a part of the deal in relationship, but maybe that's different than connecting with their Atma, with their transcendental body, which we're going to talk about next time. And maybe we haven't investigated deep enough their subtle body and our own.
Okay, so we're going to take one more question because there's such a good one here.
Good.
Chitra writes, Jeffrey G., all this makes perfect sense in the abstract, but some of our lives are positively fraught with stress every single day. One may agree intellectually with the guru, but be subject to everyday realities that are much more challenging than the examples that you have presented so far.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Chitra. It does sound abstract at first, but that's because you've not been doing it, you've just been thinking about doing it. When you do it, it doesn't seem at all abstract, it seems like a fight. It seems like a down and out, knock down, drag out fight between you and your senses. Until it feels that way, you're not doing it. If you're doing that, you wouldn't think it's abstract, you would think it's hard. Now, I agree. Everyone who practices it says, wow, this is harder when you do it to control the senses. In fact, I'll answer your question by quoting the Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter on Ashtanga Yoga. Toward the end of that chapter, Bhagavan, Krishna says, well, you know, Arjuna, you just have to control the mind. And once you control the mind, you can control the senses, and that's no problem. And Arjuna starts laughing, and he says, but Bhagavan, easy for you to say, but I think it would be easier to control the wind than to control the mind. And of course, Bhagavan's answer, bad news for all of us, is, yes, I understand, but with practice, with diligent practice, it is possible. So Chitra, the secret is diligent practice. It's specific practice. It's practice that's done an hour or two a day. My formula is 1/10 of the day to your transcendental practice. That means 2.4 hours. And that means sitting down somewhere, actually doing it. And eventually it'll include chanting mantras, doing asanas, doing pranayama, withdrawing the senses, monitoring the senses and what they're getting from the world. And eventually the crazy part of us comes forward, and the guru is supposed to be a kind of psychologist that helps you during those craziest moments. And that's why having someone to be with you when you're going crazy while you're trying to control your senses is very useful. So
Great.
it's not the person in control of your life, it's the one who helps protect you from your crazy life.
Chitra, thanks you. So she has some appreciation for that. Thank you. Jeffrey, is there anything else before we do our closing tonight that you would like to say? Or
I think the last thing is that we're just, in order to practice yoga, we first have to really understand, what am I trying to do? So here's a secret for everyone. Extend your arms, and from your fingertips to your heart. That's what you're in charge of. Mm-hmm. So as you hear all of this knowledge, try to think that every day you're going to keep making that circle, and you're going to ask, what am I doing to take charge of what's going on here? If a negative emotion or something makes it inside your circle, then how long does it take you to clear it out? If you get to a negative emotional state, how long does it take you to clear that out? How long does it take you to change your focus when someone pulls your focus over there? How long does it take for you to pull it back and have control of it yourself? Are you going to sleep consciously? Are you waking up consciously? And that would mean, now I'm using consciously this way, with a conscious ritual that's yogic, that you do on the way into sleep, on the way out of sleep. If you wake up during a dream during sleep, there's a yogic process for regaining the correct focus and control of your consciousness and your mind. So if you're not ritualizing all of these parts of your life and trying to take control of what's going on from your fingertips to your heart, then you're doing your yoga as if you're trying to control the world. The secret is to just try to separate yourself from all of that input and just be in charge of what happens from your fingertips to here. And if anything inside isn't pleasing you, just throw it out for the moment. Just push it to the outside. If it's your partner that you've married, don't throw them away, but push them out to the edge of your body. Push the emotion you're having out here so that it's not dominating you here. Restore order here and come back to the conversation. You'll have to do that if you have any relationship, at work or with friends or marriage or with children. But learning to do this yogically means it doesn't take you very long to take control over your circle again. So everything you learn in these seminars, apply it to this. You're in charge of your circle now. You're a yogi.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jeffrey G.
Thanks, Emma, for all your great questions.
Oh, wonderful. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. This is really great. It's the very beginning of how we will be able to learn more from Jeffrey and be able to interact this way. I think it's brilliant, and we're really excited to launch it right now. And like we said, there's one more class next week I unfortunately will not be able to join right now. At this point, it's 80% that I can't. So the show will go on. The show will go on, and I will definitely watch the recording if I don't get to make it. But I wanted to, again, thank everybody for being really patient with us over the last few weeks while we were trying to figure everything out. And next week's class is the final one in this series, and then I'm sure there'll be another series beginning, and I look forward to that.
You saw our email last week, everybody, that this isn't NASA, this is Vasa, but now the lady behind Vasa, who has made all of this possible,
Sandy G.
Sandy Graham, and Kyle Pierce, who's been also making this possible. So Absolutely. Thanks to them, and now I'm going to hand it over to Sandy.
Wow, that was a really informative class. Thanks, Hema, for your great questions and leading everyone through the process, and to Jeffrey for the amazing knowledge that he shared today. We have even I, who have been at this for a long time, love the reminders, and there's a lot that I can meditate on for the next week. I'd like everyone to check out Hema's wellness program and all of her events coming up next year. Right now, Hema, you're in Chicago, right? And I think there are a couple of events that people can attend while you're there.
Chicago doesn't want to let me go, so I keep booking stuff, and I'm delayed of leaving here.
Well, everybody go to Hema's website, Hemalayaa.com, for more details. We'll send you the link after the webinar. But before we sign off, we'd like to offer everyone who registered today an opportunity to delve deeper into this knowledge. After this webinar, you're going to receive an incredible offer from us. We're sending each one of you a special link to 2 of Jeffrey's best-selling courses. The first one is called The 8 Limbs of Yoga. It consists of 8 two-hour classes where Jeffrey systematically elaborates on each of the limbs. Tonight was just a glimpse of the series. And the second is called The Philosophy and Lifestyle of Yoga. This course consists of 12 two-hour classes, and Jeffrey speaks on the 12 issues that any practicing yoga practitioner or teacher should know. These 2 courses retailed for $420, but for tonight, you will be able to instantly download both of them for only $129. And since you were so patient with us, we'd like to sweeten the deal even more, and so we're going to send you a free ebook entitled Life Without Fear by Jeffrey Armstrong. So be fearless, click on the offer that we send you, and be prepared for some great changes in your life. Everyone, have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday, with or without Hema. The show goes on. A little sadder without her, but thank you so much, Hema. So join us for The Scholar and the Yogini, The Secrets of Yoga, next Wednesday, same time. And thanks, Kyle, for making this all possible. Good night, everybody.
Kyle. Good night. Namaste. Namaste. Good night.
Good night, everyone.